Starcast returns to the Chicago area this Labor Day weekend. Tickets for Starcast 6 are now on sale at Starcast.com. Join us at the Hyatt Regency Schaumburg starting Friday night, September 1st, for unique fan experiences with wrestling legends from yesterday and superstars from today. Follow Starcast events on Twitter for the latest updates about all things Starcast. Can't be in Chicago? Premiere Streaming Network has you covered. Visit StarcastOnPremiere.com and get daily access or save with the weekend bundle. Get all past Starcast, the upcoming Wrestling Showcase event, as well as thousands of hours of content from your favorite promotions and stars, and 2 months of Premiere Plus for free. Order now at StarcastOnPremiere.com. Starcast 6 is brought to you in part by ProWrestlingCrate.com. Monthly mystery crates for die-hard wrestling fans. Plans start at $9.95 and are the perfect gift for any wrestling fan. Visit ProWrestlingCrate.com today.
Recognized symbol of excellence in sports entertainment.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you are listening to My World. And of course, we couldn't do it without the Hall of Famer himself, the greatest professional wrestler of all time, your friend and mine, Double J, JArrett. Jeff, how are you, man?
Oh, Conrad Thompson, it is so good to hear your voice. I don't know if it's clearer, faster, but I don't know if I sound clearer or faster, but we're sitting here in the palatial studios, the My World studios here in Hendersonville, Tennessee. This is Studio A, and you're in Studio B down on the hill in Huntsville, Alabama. But here in Hendersonville, we got us some
business internet, daddy. Come on.
some
I'm
lightning
so excited.
speed.
Dude, it's been a long time coming.
For today. I mean, we're better than 1080i if you're watching this on video. Anyway, so folks, I hope that we're all good. But if you are catching a clip of this on video, you're going to see my blinds open a little bit. We are about to get one of the damnedest storms in the world. It is midday is here and it's dark outside. So that's all right. We're going to power through because I'm hardwired in. No Wi-Fi stuff. I'm hardwired in from the street, Daddy. How about that,
I love it. A gig. I mean, you're finally with us. I can't make fun of the Hendersonville Wi-Fi anymore. And man, we've got so much to catch up on. Of course, a couple of weeks ago, you were across the pond. I want to talk about that. We also saw you kick the entire Elite's ass, and we had the WrestleQuest launch that was maybe a bit of a stall. And we got a lot to talk about. But before we talk about all that, because we got a bunch to talk about before we get to our topic, Hard Justice today, I want to talk about the shoes world order. What's going on with baseball, Daddy-O? A lot of chatter?
First time in history. And in Springfield, there's had multiple names of the teams. But Conrad, I am so dadgum proud of just the entire organization. It is really a labor of love. A lot of work goes into it. My partner, Jamie Toole, shout out to him. But first year in the history of in the baseball, Satchel Paige played in the stadium, Robin Roberts Stadium. So we go back many, many years in that city. Deep history of baseball. Back-to-back years in playoffs. What a heck of a season. Just about everything we kind of did this year clicked on multiple levels. We had Battle of the Sexes. Monica Abbott came in and threw her heater, fast pitch softball, and that was a great community event. We, of course, had the Cards and Cubs Legends game, all kinds of things. The just one night after another. But what really matters to a lot of folks, I want people to come out. We say at Choose Baseball, baseball is our platform, but not our purpose. Our purpose is to bring that community together, and we certainly have in so many ways. A lot of positive things, but congrats to the boys. Back-to-back years made the playoffs, and next year we're going to keep rolling. So, Connie, I appreciate you asking me. It was we followed them online, and I got to watch them. I got to watch one of the playoff games last week streaming in the air as I was headed out to do a little WrestleQuest business. We'll get into that. But congrats to everyone in Shoes Baseball there in Springfield. Congrats to the city, the mayor, and everybody in the community that was really, really, really fired up about Shoes Baseball. So the Shoe World Order is rocking and rolling, already getting ready for year 3.
Well, man, you mentioned it, WrestleQuest. Last week, of course, we had to throw together a very special anniversary episode, if you will, about Ric Flair's last match, and people seem to really, really dig that. But in my intro, I hyped up that, hey, it's finally here. WrestleQuest drops today, and I expected to see my timeline just filled with screenshots of people who were playing as the Last Outlaw, or maybe having the Last Outlaw come into my podcast studios. I can't believe that's a thing. But instead, we found out that there's been a delay because they found a way to improve gameplay or perceived hiccup, or, sometimes when these games roll out, there's a bug and then you have to do an update. And I know that frustrates a lot of folks, and it feels like you guys got in front of that. Do I have that right?
Conrad, I have learned so much in the last 7 days about kind of the tech side of it. Obviously, I'm not a hardcore gamer and certainly not a hardcore tech guy, but I had to drill down to it. So the game, incredible momentum. And when you hear the names like Dave Meltzer and Conrad Thompson, and no, there is all kind of Easter eggs in this game, but Macho Man, Andre the Giant, Road Warriors, Jake the Snake, Coco Beware, Rocky Soulman Johnson. I could go on and on about, the legends of the 80s and 90s, and the marketing tag of the game is a love letter to professional wrestling of the 80s and 90s, but incredible momentum. The ratings that have been coming in, Conrad, again, this is a lot of new stuff to me. I dealt with it back with TNA and the Impact game, but everything has been off the charts. The momentum has been incredible. Flew out to San Francisco somewhat unexpectedly, and yes, that is why we had to do a mega soda on the Ric Flair situation. Your ins and outs are like none other, and whoa, good feedback. A lot of people like to relive that parking lot scene. We'll talk about that in a second. But Conrad, the game, and I appreciate the hype, but I'll give you this is more than inside baseball. So Monday, I'm in San Francisco in the studios. Greg Miller's the host. Ended up cracking him over the head with guitar, but we're doing all kind of streaming, and it's hype. It's all about the game. It's going to be coming out tomorrow. Conrad, we're literally, I don't know how many media hits we did, and over a period of about 5 days, I think I did like 35 interviews talking about the game. Yeah, I mean, it was like intensive, and everything was about 8/8/23. Tuesday, August 8th, the game comes out. It's been a long time coming. I mean, from the very concept, it goes back over 4 years. So, I mean, the momentum and the amount of work that went into it, and yes, the bugs, and just like our apps on our phone that, you click and it does an update, that continues with games all the time. It's just what happens. But when you launch a game, you want it to be in absolutely no fails, no flaws the day it comes out. Well, I mean, it's more than the 11th hour, Conrad. It's like the 11th hour in 55 minutes or so. And we're doing the promotions and hyping the game and all that. And then there's some couple of members on the WrestleQuest team that were following an email chain. And literally at the 11th hour, Conrad, here is the situation. And what's crazy, Conrad, is the tech issue was fixed before the email chains even really started. But in the tech world, you have to get something fixed, and then you have to get 2 third parties to validate it. So it's kind of a deal. But so on gameplay, there's between 300 and 400 devices. The reason it's such a big span, because sometimes there's phones or tablets or whatever that are discontinued or updated or whatever. So it's a big range, but let's just say between 300 and 400. There were 3 devices, and this is what I'm really proud to be partners with Skybound and Mega Cat Studios. So 3 out of the 300-ish devices that if you played the game worked perfect. But when there's over 40 hours of gameplay. So let's just say you play 10 or 20 hours of gameplay and then stop it. And then all of a sudden you go, hey, your wife or your kids or whatever, and they want to start playing, and they log in and play the game, and they're going to play it on this there's only 3 out of these 300 and something devices. It wouldn't save it.
Okay.
You have to start back from literally square one. So starting back at square one was something that you lose all the gameplay. And as a gamer, that's the last thing you want to do. So they had to fix these kind of bugs. And look, when the game comes out a week later, you got to keep updating. That's, I guess, the technology. That's how things work. But you can't release a game. Let me say this. You could release a game and just hope it didn't happen. But the powers that be and, the attorneys and the tech side and all that say, hey, man, we can't put this game out because we can't get it signed off on from the two parties. So when you look at our distributors and, it's going to be on every platform, you just don't want to put anybody in a bad position, but most importantly, you don't want to put a consumer and say, hey, man, I just played 10 hours and now it's not saved over here. So anyway, the decision was made, and we're sitting down, and I sit down in this one studio. So I did about 3 hours of live streaming stuff. And then I went into another studio and started doing interviews. And I'm kind of watching everybody on their phones that I have nothing to do with. I'm not on any of the email chains. And they make the decision, yep, we're pushing it 2 weeks. And I said, now is the game, I'm asking some of the questions. They said, it's actually already fixed, but we don't have enough time to get it signed off on. We can't release it in the morning. So literally it was pulled at the 11th hour. But Conrad, I got to say this. My delusional optimism stepped right into play. And I say, guys, there's a silver lining here. And truth be known, here we are 4, 5, 6 days after that. There's a ton of media opportunities. There are some streamers and influencers that have gotten on board that weren't on board, but not because they didn't want to, because their schedules weren't open. So we've got even more press, more momentum. The asshole Greg Miller that I cracked over the head with the guitar, he's probably behind this somehow, some way. But no, a lot of marketing is just being amped up. And so we can't wait. It's coming out. Conrad, I can tell you that at least half the interviews that I did, we started talking about the different Easter eggs, and they already knew about you being in the game. I just got to say, boy, did they start giving you your flowers about how you're in the DNA of professional wrestling right now.
Wow.
Yeah, no, Conrad. And I was like, are you aware of the award? Most of them were not aware. They're in the, their gaming press. And I told them about the award, but they're dialed in, and that's kind of one of the cool things, all the different Easter eggs, but the gameplay, and again, going to be a lot of fun, Conrad. And when this game takes off, I'm telling you, it's going to take off. So that is my WrestleQuest, but boy, I learned a lot. But things like that happen in the tech world. One day you don't have internet, and now you got fast speed hardwire.
One of the other fun things I saw you do is you did an AMA over on Reddit, and Ask Me Anything. Is that your first time doing a Reddit AMA?
A second. I actually did one in the early days. A guy said, hey, man, would you want to do this about Global Force? And at that time, I just kind of I did that with somebody, and they asked me the questions. But Conrad, I sat right here in my chair the other day and was actually – I handled it all I'm growing up, Conrad. I learned how to do it. But hey, because you're dialed into that, every now and then you'll send me stuff from
yeah.
How did you know I did it? I'm curious.
I saw your post on social, and then I clicked over, and you left a lot of fun Easter eggs. If you're looking for some inside baseball stuff, some real life Jeff stuff, I'm not going to give it away. You can go read it. And there was a few where I was like, okay, that was not character Jeff. That was real Jeff. So,
oh, wow.
Check that out if you haven't already. And by the way, and it's been so long since we got together and do this, so I want to briefly mention that noise you hear in the background is a hell of a storm in Jeff's backyard. We can actually hear the rain coming in and thunderclaps.
Yeah, sorry.
No, listen, you got great sounding internet. We're hardwired now, Daddy. It's 2023 up in Hendersonville. It was also 2023, and something none of us had on our bingo card, when you almost single-handedly, with respect to everybody else on your side, almost single-handedly, you beat Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. And when we saw you go nose to nose with Kenny Omega and him cower down and say, no, I can't handle the Last Outlaw. I don't have the capacity. I'm not the performer you are. And then you stack their bodies on top of each other and pinned them all at the same damn time. I mean, that's just another Wednesday for old Double J these days, is it not?
Oh, Conrad, look at that photo there. It's the Ricky Morton sold out hanging from the rafters. Conrad, let me just lay something on you, okay?
Ready.
Do you know where that Dynamite took place at, that photo that you're watching?
Where was that?
Okay. Give you a little story. And as we're having conversations like you always do during, and I looked over at Jay Lethal and I said, Jay, so let me get this right. I'm going to be standing face to face against Kenny Omega tonight. Arguably, and sometimes not so arguably, he's hailed as the greatest professional wrestler walking the earth today. Is that fair to say, Conrad?
A lot of people think that. Yes, sir.
And he's unbelievable. And on this podcast, I've talked about him and Ospreay's matches and Kenny, yes, heavily Japan influenced. But anyway, standing in the ring face to face against the top dog.
Yeah.
Do you know? So that's in 2023.
His boots were shaking. I know that. I could see it on TV.
Rewind. And we just had a light go out here. I don't know if you saw that, but had a light go out here. Rewind 28 years ago, Conrad.
Oh, wait. I know where you're going here. I think
Conrad. I bet you do. Yep. Just rewind a short 28 years. Tampa, Florida, Sun Dome, Double J and the Roadie versus Razor Ramon. First ever Intercontinental title win. And I told Jay Lethal that story and, just put it into context. It was fun. I love that building. They're on top of you. It's a great venue. I love playing those kind of venues when they're just on top of you, and a lot of buzz in the air and the 6-man. And I didn't stack them just right, I don't think, Conrad, to your liking.
No,
but
next time.
No, but do you know that's the first time I've been in the ring against the Young Bucks too?
Really?
Yeah, and that was brought up and mentioned, and
they were in TNA. How about that?
Yeah. So it was come on, Conrad. We've talked about this now for a while now, but I know you didn't have that on your bingo card.
No.
Double J in the ring against Omega. Wait, on Dynamite 200.
Not only that, I mean, I have it on good authority that recently WWE set all-time records with SummerSlam.
Yeah.
It's the most watched non-WrestleMania pay-per-view in history, the third most watched thing on Peacock for WWE in history, besides night 1 and night 2 of WrestleMania this year. An all-time non-WrestleMania gate record, number 9 on the all-time list.
Wow.
For all of pro wrestling, and an all-time sponsorship record. Supposedly $8.5 million at the gate, nearly $7 million in sponsorship, and a whole heap of that came from Slim Jim. And of course, LA Knight won that match. Yeah. And as I understand it, they specifically requested you over at Slim Jim, and WWE had to let them know, sorry, we could dig up another Jeff, but we don't have that Jeff. And the Underground Railroad of sponsorships just lit up. And there's a new video game coming out, and they had seen the work you had done for WrestleQuest. And the Texas Chainsaw Massacre folks reached out to Tony Khan, stroked that big old check, and said, give me all your Jeffs. I don't want one Jeff. I want both Jeffs. I want the Last Outlaw, and I want the death-defying Jeff Hardy in a Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And we're going to do it in Nashville, Tennessee, this Wednesday night, tomorrow night in your hometown. Boy, old Jeff Hardy, he's walking in, but he's limping out. That's what's going down.
He may be doing more than limp out, but no, Conrad. Who'd have thunk? What am I? The video game sponsor deal, or me and Orange Cassidy a couple of months ago had that sponsorship, but no, it is a absolutely very cool integration. That game comes out in just a few days, but no, it's it's a very cool deal, and everybody's heard of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but coming out in the video game form, deathmatch Didn't think I had that on my bingo card either. I, dabbled in GCW a little bit, and I'm sure Cardona's going to have something to say about this. But, yep, me and Nero Hardy, one-on-one. And rumor has it, Leatherface is going to be involved. Did you ever see Leatherface in Memphis?
I saw Leatherface in IWA over in Japan.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
This is the real Leatherface, though.
I can't wait, man. I can't wait. I wonder what old Tony Falk's up to these days. Hey, so we're less than 2 weeks away from the biggest show in pro wrestling this year. As crazy as that sounds, Wembley right around the corner. And of course, just a week after that, man, Starcast is here. If you haven't made plans already, what are you waiting for? Come check us out. Get yourself a bracelet right now at StarCast.com. That's Starcast.com. And if you can't make it to Chicago, check out Starcast on Premiere.com. We want to make sure that everybody knows that The Last Outlaw is going to be there. And the rumor and innuendo is you've got plans on doing more than just meet and greets. But we did announce a whole host of other folks who are going to be there. What's left of Jeff Hardy will be there, along with his brother Matt. And of course, lots of Hall of Famers like Rob Van Dam and Jake Roberts and everybody in between. But Dennis Rodman, for a basketball nerd like yourself, I know you're pumped. I don't think he's ever done a wrestling convention. And if he has, it's been a long, long time. But in Chicago, where he won so many championships with the Bulls, this will be a fantastic opportunity to catch him. And of course, all the other Hall of Famers like Sting that you were hoping would be there. They're there. And of course, all the great stars of AEW today as well. But maybe the thing that I'm most excited about, because I'm a wrestling nerd, a self-professed wrestling nerd, we've got Kawada.
Unreal.
This is Kawada's first appearance in the United States in over 35 years. And we don't just have him doing photos and autographs. And if you're an autograph collector or a photo guy, I'm being sincere, this is probably the only chance you'll ever have to do that. This cat has not been here in 35 years. And if you grew up watching Japanese wrestling over in All Japan, getting those tape tradings that I used to do, and of course, reading The Observer, you know what a legend he is. And nobody knows that perhaps better than Eddie Kingston. I mean, Kawada was known for wearing black and yellow, and all these years later, Eddie Kingston also donning the black and yellow. We don't just have Kawada for the photo ops, which will be a pro photo op, by the way, because that's the one you'd want it for. We've also got him on stage talking to Eddie Kingston for the very first time. He's never done anything like this. Yes, we will have a translator there, but my goodness, you want to talk about wrestling history, a rare signing, a first time ever. Kawada's about as cool as it gets to me, Jeff. What do you think?
Conrad, we'll come back to Wembley in a minute. I got a little Grado update there, but you told me that I'd be pumped. And when the Rodman deal, I just kind of shook my head and going, I just wonder if people understand. If you hang around Conrad long enough, you'll figure out a way to make some money. Rodman in Chicago doing a signing, that blew me away. But the Kawada deal, I don't think I'm as big a wrestling nerd, but I'm into it. And we've talked offline. When I saw that come across, knowing kind of the history, and Kawada in the Meltzer sheets way back when you would read about it, there is a group in Nashville, Conrad, of buddies of mine, or wrestling buddies of mine there, because I went out to a show recently. They're getting in the car and they're driving up to Nashville. Yes. And how many Kawada autographs exist in the U.S.? That's kind of where my brain went. Not much. So the opportunity, let me ask you this, Conrad. This is what I've been wanting to ask you. Is there a more rare signing in any of the last 5 or 6 Starcasts that you can compare this to?
Well, we got CM Punk out of retirement once upon a time. That was a big deal. It was a feather in the cap. We got Jim Crockett Jr. to make his first public appearance in decades. We got Kobashi back at the second one.
Okay.
But when you were reading, if you grew up like me reading those newsletters, you heard about Misawa, you heard about Kobashi, you heard about Kawada, and now we get to see that. And when Low Key was just wearing people out with these crazy kicks 20 years ago that people were going nuts about in Ring of Honor, They were calling them Kawada kicks, and you still hear people refer to that
To
on
this
wrestling
day.
today.
To this day.
And a lot of, people who grew up just watching the Attitude Era, they may not recognize it. But I'm telling you, if you're a historian of wrestling, you appreciate the history of wrestling, you watch stuff beyond just the WWF and WCW or ECW or whatever, you know who Kawada is. And as I understand it, Japanese culture doesn't really do meet and greets and conventions and things like that. So this is really new territory for him. He's not done anything like this ever before. And it is a commitment, folks, to fly from Japan to Chicago. It just is. You leave your real life behind for a few days here and go through a pretty grueling travel. And now you're in a totally different time zone and have all this jet lag. I'm saying all that to say, I'm not saying this is the last time we'll see Kawada, but it's the first time in 35 years he's been here on American soil. So make plans to join us, STARRCAST.com. You can not only hear his story, but you can meet the man, shake his hand, get a picture, get an autograph. And if you can't make it, we are accepting mail-ins. Now, we haven't really done that a lot for Starcast, but I recognize that, man, there's a lot of wrestling happen really close back to back here. I mean, all in, and then just 1 week later, all out. So I get it. If you can't make it, it doesn't mean you missed your opportunity to hook up with some of these talents, especially Mr. Kawada. We are accepting mail-ins. All the information is available now, STARRCAST.com. But the idea that we're going to hear his story and be translated into English, and Eddie Kingston, with all of his passion and appreciation for Japanese pro wrestling, he's the host of the panel. I mean, Jeff, is there a better guy to pay homage? And
that's why when I looked at, and you've got the who's who, candidly, but I'm going back to Kawada. If you want to, if you're a dad or an uncle or a brother or maybe a grandpa and you want to leave something to your kids, the Kawada autograph is value.
Yes.
I'm just, the mail-ins, Conrad, I didn't even know you were doing that for Kawada.
I think it's necessary for this one because it's so rare. Yeah. I mean, and listen, I'll be honest, logistically, it ain't the easiest thing. It's way easier not to do mail-ins. Just bring him and meet him. But it's like, you know what? I don't know. Like,
I got you.
I want to be appreciative of the fact that school's starting back. It's 1 week after another big pay-per-view. There's a lot of stuff going on.
People in
a lot going on. So if you can't get there, but you still, man, I really wish I could get that autograph. I don't know when you'll have another chance. And here's the other thing. I'm not encouraging you to do this, and I hope people don't. I hope they appreciate who he is and they want it for their own collection. But a Kawada autograph on eBay is going to go bananas after this.
That's what that's what I'm saying that. And look, with the others you named, Punk, that
they've done stuff here locally.
I was going to say they have done stuff in America.
Yes.
So anyway, Starcast is going to be rocking this year. Man, what a month for the Last Outlaw in my world. We've got WrestleQuest all in that kind of week. We got Conrad. We've got Podcast Movement. We're doing a little panel. We've got WrestleQuest coming out. We got Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You
just beat Kenny Omega. You're going to Wembley. You're coming to All Out. You're meeting Kawada. And don't even act like you're not going to don an NWO shirt and throw up the Too Sweet with Dennis Rodman. I know you are. I know you are.
We're in the same club.
You are. I mean, think about that. You were in a faction with Dennis Rodman. Different times, but it counts, by God.
Okay, the Storm is through there. We got a great topic. Sting, Joe, Booker. Man, today's show is going to be fun. I feel like we've chatted quite a while. We've weathered torrential downpours, storms, hiccups. I got full Wi-Fi. Connie, you ready to rock?
Man, I'm ready for something fresh, and I'm talking about HelloFresh. Take a bite out of summer with HelloFresh. We've got chef-crafted seasonal recipes and their brand new fresh and fit summer menu. I also want to mention that they've got all the proteins that you could possibly need. They've got something for every single diet. And that's a big deal because, listen, not everybody's trying to bulk up like the Last Outlaw. Not everybody's trying to look real Jack Daddy. Turns out some of us, man, we're trying to drop some LBs too. Well, you can do that too. And maybe you're looking for keto, or maybe you're looking, seriously, whatever your diet is, HelloFresh has something for you. And man, they've got so many, and I mean it, so many great different options. You'll never get bored. And that's what my wife and I love the most, because it does feel like sometimes we get in a rut. Man, not anymore. And it's so freaking easy. I mean, I can't talk about this enough, how easy it is. Like, it's a step-by-step menu, right? So the instructions come, all the pre-portioned ingredients. You don't have to worry about all the shopping and did I get enough stuff? Did I buy the wrong thing? Do I need to go get an extra? And it's great stuff that I have to admit I was a little intimidated by. I was thinking, I don't know if I can do this. Yes, you can, because it's photos on the instructions, folks. And when they say HelloFresh, they mean it. It goes from the farm to your house in less than 7 days. You can taste the difference. And they're making stuff that's fun for the backyard too. How about the backyard bratwurst bar? They've even got tangy key lime pies. And you can do all of this stuff and they make it easy. They've got plenty of snacks too, like more than 100 different items you can add to it. But seriously, we were talking about all the different diets. How about Calorie Smart? How about Protein Smart? They don't just have your dinners, they got lunches too. Maybe you're vegan, man, we can hook you up as well. If you're looking for free time and tasty food that's fresh, boom, they take out all the guesswork. They take out all the meal planning and they deliver you the ingredients and you're ready to go. By the way, some of them, they even have like a fast and fresh opportunity. Those are ready in 15 minutes or less. So not only is it faster than takeout, it's also 25% cheaper than takeout. It really is no wonder that HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit. Hurry, check it out right now. You'll be glad you did. Go to HelloFresh.com/MyWorld50. Use that code MyWorld50. You'll get 50% off plus free shipping. That's HelloFresh.com/MyWorld50. Use the code MyWorld50. You'll get 50% off plus free shipping. It's America's #1 meal kit. It's HelloFresh. Jeff, you and I have both rocked some HelloFresh. Does it get any better than this? I mean, this is even popular amongst the boys in AEW, is it not?
It sure is, Connie. It's kind of amazing, the power of AdFreeShows. But I'll say this. Karen is out of town with Kira. So me and Code Dog are rocking it here in the bachelor pad. All the other girls are gone. Guess what I'm going to cook tonight?
HelloFresh, baby.
But just for me. Codes will have me do I don't know, a kid's meal somewhere. I've got to make a run. But yep, doing it myself. So pretty impressive, huh? But hey, all you fellas out there that are listening, it's that easy. I kid you not. I love to cook. Well, let me say this, because Karen rolls her eyes at me. I do cook. I love to grill, more importantly.
Of course.
I love that. But she asked, what are you doing? I said, hey, HelloFresh came yesterday. By the time you get back home, both meals will be gone for the week. So yeah, easy, man. And it's good. It
is good. And by the way, it's a little pro tip. If you cook with your wife, dessert might be on her. I'll let you put that together. All right. So let's talk about what we're doing today. We're talking about Hard Justice 2008.
Wait, what's the title?
Hard Justice.
Hard Justice.
Isn't that it?
Well, you were talking about desserts and.
Yeah. Hey, It ain't hard cooking with your wife, but she might make it hard for you. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Hard Justice 2008, 15 years ago. It's your first pay-per-view in the Northeast, man.
Yeah.
And when we left off our journey, because we are talking a lot about 2008 here on the show, we talked about Sting hitting Samoa Joe with a bat in his title defense against Booker T in Houston at Victory Road. And the show itself, as we said, the first one in the Northeast, it's going to be at the Sovereign Bank Arena in Trenton, New Jersey. Why do you think it took so long for you guys to run in the Northeast? It does feel like, people a lot of times race to that area. I mean, there's New York, New Jersey, Boston. I mean, there's so many great wrestling towns in that area of the country. You guys launched in 2002. Here we are in 2008. What took so long? Was it timing? Was it costs? Was it something else?
It really, and that's why I was trying to think first deal, 2008, and we're talking maybe 6-7 shows. Cause we, for 2006, my bad, 3, 4, 5, 6 in Orlando. We didn't really get out on the road. So how many shows, we went to Houston, and I'm not going to say this was the decision, but if you really got a footprint of the pay-per-view buys during the Attitude Era, WWE is strong on both coasts. WCW was South and Midwest. That just kind of the realities of, I'll call it the alternative brand. And I'm not calling WCW the alternative brand, but it was based in Atlanta and blah, 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 blah. But the other thing, and look, we deal with this every day. And, any touring company, music, comedy, we're doing professional wrestling. Building avails are a incredible challenge. It is a true chess match. It's juggling act. And so it wasn't really by design that, where are we going to go? I know that the original thought, Conrad, but you just got to kind of have to feel the brand. We wanted to debut in New York City. Well, finding the right building is not the easiest. And Lowell was a building that was good to us, that area. But Trenton, I believe that's where the Ring of Honor pay-per-view was the last one was most recently at. At the end of the day, the building avail was right up there at the priority. It wasn't any strategic play, but hey, man, let's get up north and, take the show up there.
Well, you did. We should talk about creatively how we get there. The story, of course, at the end of the pay-per-view is that Booker T left with the title belt at Victory Road. He had declared himself the new champion
in Houston.
He's going to be interrupted by Jim Cornette, who's going to demand the title back and schedule a rematch for Hard Justice. But what's interesting about this and setting up this rematch between Samoa Joe and Booker T is we see Samoa Joe and he doesn't quite look the same. We got him out here in a suit. This is the first time I remember Joe wearing a suit for a segment like this. He had always been, well, in his wrestling gear otherwise. Why was this decision made that we needed to switch his look up? Who was a proponent of that?
Well, I know that I was, if not at the top of it, everybody for different reasons, whether it's Dutch or Vince or Dixie or marketing or whatever. But my thought process with Joe, because when you just look, and I'll just say from the neck up of Joe, man, he's got a money face. He's just got charisma. He can throw a smile on you. He can throw a snarl on you. He's got a very animated face. And then his athletic ability. I don't know if you ever saw on TNA when the Samoan dancers and kind of a war dance before he went to the ring. So Joe, and I had this conversation with him maybe multiple times, is that I think he's very diverse. He looks good in a suit. He looks good in war paint. He looks good in his regular, tights. But him being in this position, I wanted him to presentations, everything. I think I put that on that AMA Reddit, didn't I? Something about that. But no, I'm just a stickler because I think, and I don't want to say the casual fan, because I think even a hardcore fan, when you turn on the TV, the old school guys say, dress like the Marks, you're going to be one of the Marks. And I'm not going to subscribe to all that. But I do believe you got to look the part. And I think there's multiple ways to get there. But I think you have to have a defined look. And Joe, I thought, looked great in the suit. What'd you think, Connie? Seriously, what? If you didn't like it, tell me you didn't like it.
I like it. But, I like it as a bad guy, I suppose. But it does feel like
stuffy for him.
Well, yeah, it just feels weird. Like, okay. I don't know. Like, I know he's Samoan, but we're not presenting him like a quote unquote savage like the WWF used to with the Islanders and things like that. It's not necessarily an Alpha and Sika concept, but I kind of felt like the suit thing, that's like more to me, that's a Cody and Rick and Nick Aldis sort of thing, an evolution type thing. But he was a badass killer, this guy, and maybe not necessarily in a mafia type of way. I don't know. It caught me off guard. I like towel over his head. I'm a hybrid MMA boxing badass. I'm going to come kick your ass. And that's how I would prefer to even see a Mike Tyson, not a suited up Mike Tyson.
Yeah. That's why, I think going back to the line, Connie, it's subjective.
Yes, absolutely.
It is truly subjective. The thing about Joe, and he's articulate. And I think when Joe, when you meet him in person, you immediately go, oh, wait a minute. This guy's, I don't say verbal skills. That sounds like promo, but IQ and his delivery, that he's much more than just a savage beast.
Yeah. Let's also talk about maybe where we needed a little bit of brain power. I thought this was a little hokey. There's a segment where Beer Money and Jackie are going to attack the folks in the production truck. And the thing I've always questioned about when we see this, because it's not the only time we've ever seen this in wrestling, but if we've got wrestlers beating up people in the production truck, logically, how does the show continue?
Red flag, red flag. You just used the word logically.
Well, I'm just saying.
No, I get it. I completely hear you. I also think that, you know, if we're going down that road, Conrad, it almost takes me back to the creative room. And yes. Look, we all could kind of say this and say, well, now logically, okay, so you got to go down the rabbit hole is how do we know who in the production they're kicking, who in the production are we kicking ass? If we're going to go that deep, when there's a match going on and there's a false tag that happens in the ring and there's an actual tag and the babyface comes in, starts his comeback, and the referee has to push him back. How come that referee in the back doesn't come running down the ramp and say, hey, I was watching the match. There was a tag. Let him go. I'm going back to my Dutchism, wrestling logic. But I hear you. I mean, I think the little subtleties in television wrestling on TV, I think if you kind of dot I's and cross T's, you can kind of make wrestling logic work. But if it's just done haphazard, I think you immediately come to that context of, wait a minute, if they're beating up people in the TV truck, they're not going to be seen on TV. I get it. Double-edged sword. It's subjective.
We see Team 3D and Kurt Angle get out of a limo, and Angle is dressed as Sting. That's a little different. Team 3D is of, I mean, look at that. I don't know what to think of that. How about this for a TV segment? We get Jim Cornette surrounded by a room full of very upset and yelling knockouts. He yells at the top of his lungs. He wants everyone quiet. And then he announces a 10-woman gauntlet match as they continue to chatter. He said he hopes none of them are married because their husbands ought to commit suicide. Cornette said the winner of the gauntlet match tonight will face Taylor next week for the title. And he shoos them away disrespectfully. Women, he says. Now, listen, I understand we wouldn't do that segment today. This segment does not age well, but these knockouts, man, they are dynamite in the ratings, pardon the pun. So you gotta put them in as many segments as you can. I get that. Maybe we could have done some different creative here for Corny, huh?
What is our barometer? Cornette in his element, and look, a lot of, not just Cornette, but a lot of stuff we did or WWE did or WCW did, or certainly in the Attitude Era, there is so much stuff that, I mean, absolutely didn't age well. But in this kind of environment, because we're in, I know we're in 08, I was going to say the month, but I mean, when you kind of look at going back to, I think, in so many ways, the calling card of the knockouts is that we started slow with 2 and then went to 4, went to 6. All that diverse kind of personalities. Cornette, suit and tie, distinguished veteran, trying to make sense of the craziness. I thought it always played well. Now, look, the suicide line, I'm well aware of mental health. Yeah, that didn't age well. But I thought it came off, I hate to use the word real. I'll use the word authentic. That's kind of how Cornette would deal with all of it.
Let's talk about the 6-man we're going to set up. It's going to be AJ, Christian, and Rhino interrupting a segment with Team 3D and Angle. And that's going to lead to a rematch from Victory Road. This time it'll be a 6-man tables match. We're also continuing the Dutt Lethal SoCal Val story. Dutt is continuing to try to make Jay look inept, and Val is continuing to question the relationship. Beer Money are in a big segment here where they're going to whip fans in the front row and even Hector Guerrero to build to LAX running out for the save. And this edition of Impact ends with Booker T beating a fellow named Consequences Creed in a stretcher match before Samoa Joe would run in and make the save and shove Booker into the ambulance. It does a 1.05 rating. That's 1.5 million viewers. I wonder what that Consequences Creed guy ever did.
buddy. He's a front runner in the gaming industry. He is a video game guru, but Xavier Woods doing quite well, or has done quite well for himself. But as a young dude,
Yes,
we all recognize that guy's got just a boatload of charisma. Yeah. When you kind of look at the numbers, and I know it's a different time and all this, but you just went over kind of, I don't want to say the top 5 storylines, but Dut Lethal, Samoa Joe, Booker, Consequences Creed, Knockouts, Guerrero, Beer Money. Our roster was
loaded.
And very diverse. The cookie cutterness that can really, I think, drag a show down where it's so much of the same, and it's not easy to do. But that's something that I tried to step back and have kind of the conversation between me, Vince, and Dutch, and saying, let's try to stay not same old, because I'll say this, you can slip in creative rooms so easy into a routine that, this will work, and then it all runs together.
The roster you guys have here in 2008 is just crazy, and we're all trying to set up here on the next week of Impact, Booker T and Samoa Joe. It's not just going to be a rematch. Now it's going to be 6 sides of steel. We also see Beer Money defeat the Motor City Machine Guns in a strap match, which leads to Shelley and Sabin getting hit with the straps a lot. There's also a segment where Taylor Wilde is going to beat Velvet Sky 3 times in a row. Davari is going to be rechristened as Sheikh Abdul Bashir. And there's a 6-man on this Impact of AJ Styles, Christian, and Rhino losing to Team 3D and Kurt. This is a rematch of their pay-per-view. This time it's a tables match. They're prepping for their 6-man at the pay-per-view. It feels like, man, when we're saying, hey, Samoa Joe and Booker T, let's do that again. Let's do this 6-man again. Let's have Dutt and Lethal keep their thing going. It doesn't feel like we're starting a lot of new stuff here, Jeff. It feels like, all right, we're going to do the same thing. Let's just change the gimmicks or the circumstances surrounding the match. Was that important? I mean, I know that once upon a time, we used to build pay-per-views back in the day based on a quarter. The Royal Rumble, and then a few months later, you get WrestleMania, and then a few months later, King of the Ring, and then a few months later, SummerSlam, and then a few months later, Survivor Series. But then it all changes. Now we're doing monthly pay-per-views. Did you find that more challenging, or did you still try to stick to, we want the 3-month story arc, we'll just have big matches along the way, build to the big blow off? Is that sort of the structure?
In broad strokes, you kind of have to. I was thinking about the kind of the numbers game, if you will, Conrad, and it's come up. We touched on it earlier, and we were just kibitzing, Wembley, all in, all out, back-to-back weeks. We were doing the monthly pay-per-view grind. And look, when it launched, and our man, EB, launched that in 95 in WCW, my guess is his roster was probably 80, 90 guys, maybe. I don't know. Let's just say 80-ish, whatever. WWF, they went and they still kept the big 4 and the monthlies, and Vince went with that in your house branding. When you look at our roster, and I think we had around 30 to 40 guys, you almost by design, it's impossible to come up with new matchups and everything that goes with it. Our business it's so difficult. It's just really not built that way. There's, going into the gaming business, and something that has just shined such a light on it is that this game has been in development, WrestleQuest, from day one, 4 years plus or minus, something like that. And then they come out of the gate. So all the build has been toward one event. Well, in music, you put out an album and you go on tour and hope that you pay dividends. And then the next year, hopefully you have another album goes out, the music business, but you can always play your hits. Wrestling is in sports, you have the different seasons and new team, new coach, new players, new set of circumstances. Yes, you have your rivalries, but there's nothing like wrestling. 52 weeks a year. Now look at, 6 nights a week, you have all the content on. And if you don't really have a super, super deep roster, it is a real challenge to come up with compelling storylines that bite. And hindsight's 2020. Somebody asked on that Reddit the other day, I don't know exactly what the question was, but I just think timing was a big part of TNA's good success. And then I think on the back end, not so good success. But, capital and funds, but a deep roster is so important. So yeah, it was 3-month storyline arcs, but you kind of had to build returns and up the ante and add a stipulation here and there. Super challenging, pal. I know I gave you a long-winded answer there, but when we do the pod here, man, it gives such a, I guess, pleasant, not so pleasant, being able to dissect these things. I think it helps me today to kind of learn from my mistakes, so many of them in the past.
We see Frank Trigg here on the program. He's going to interfere and hit AJ Styles with a kendo stick in this 6-man tag that we were referencing. Could you foresee a story or an alternate universe where Frank Trigg went full-time into wrestling?
Yes. Yeah. And I've gotten a couple of Twitter bites on that we've talked about it. Frank is box office, and we just did so little, but I mean, A, he can talk, B, he's athletic, and C, he's got a lineage. He's got a platform. It's not like character development that you're starting from absolute scratch. And his presentation's pretty damn good for never really getting into it.
We should also mention that the contract signing takes place for Booker and Samoa Joe. But what do you know? The lights go out. And Joe is laid out with Sting's bat on his chest when the lights come back on. The show's a success. The ratings grow again to a 1.11. So something is clicking. But we should follow up from something we talked about on our last episode about TNA in 2008. It's explained a little further here in The Observer. A large part of the reason Bob Ryder is replacing Bill Behrens and booking talent to outside promotions is because TNA is trying to get everyone working out of the Nashville office, which has recently expanded. Behrens is based in Atlanta and unwilling to move. Rich Baker, the company's live event promoter, is based in Stamford, where he worked under Ed Cohen for years in the WWF, but we're told he's good enough at his job, and they don't have anyone in Nashville who can replace him. So he most likely won't be forced into making the decision to move or leave. So chat me up about Bob Ryder replacing Bill Behrens, the shift in locations, and who the heck Rich Baker is and what he did for the company. But I guess we'll start at the beginning. Why was it important that Bill Behrens be in Nashville? And what do you think of his decision to say, nope, I'm staying here?
So, and we've talked about this, the day we went profitable, the Spike deal, you have to kind of look at our investor, Panda Energy. They have power plants all over the world, and they have small teams that work at each individual plant, but their headquarters is in Dallas. And Bob and Janice and Dixie's brother Todd and those folks in the corporate world, they go into the office every day, and culture. And we hear our folks up at the brand new Titan Towers. That culture is coming out of the pandemic and being required to be in there. But to say Bob is old school would be an understatement. He believed in being able to having the ability to walk in his office as the top dog, and Janice the same. So just the culture. And so, and man, the headbutting, not vicious, but just in creating culture that, even on the smallest of things, our post-production house was over on Music Row. We were, it's less than a 10-minute drive, but we used a post-production house that wasn't in-house, but just time after time after time, Dallas, Panda, Bob Carter, they wanted everything under one roof. And they understood growing pains and, everything that went with that. But once we started being profitable, it was a very clear-cut mandate. I want people in the office. We're going to take up more space and lease more square footage. And, there was a big drive to, boy, sounds ancient, but we were in the middle of the transition that we were going to be going from standard def to high def on everything, but that's coming up on the horizon. But at this point, everybody, it was more or less, no, not wasn't more or less. It was mandated. Everybody in Nashville. Bill has been in the Bill Behrens has been in the wrestling business for years and years and years, and more or less a television syndicator. He's lived in the Atlanta suburbs his entire life. We more or less knew he wasn't going to move, but hey, it was the mandate. It was the order. It was what it was. Rich Baker, Meltzer, probably heard that story either from Rich or whatever it may be, but there was a move and we eventually got there. Craig Jenkins, Mike Cruson, other folks that were, in that line of work of booking buildings. We were going to put everything under one roof. And that was the mandate. And that's the direction. And I completely understood. And I do agree that I think you can create camaraderie, some team building, looking the guy in face. You can create context because, I've heard so many things through the years, Conrad, when I hear, I'll call it wrestling folks. Oh man, these office folks, they just don't get, they don't understand the wrestling business. Okay, Conrad, I'm well aware I am a wrestling guy. That could be true, but you turn that coin over and there are so many wrestling people that just don't get the corporate world or the office world. And you got to have both. You got to create a culture that thrives. And I'm a big proponent of that. Not so much that I'm a big believer in punching a time clock. That's not the point, but being in the same room and and I know that this may sound ancient with Zoom calls and everything that goes with it. So I understand that technology is a huge plus. But I do think there's an upside. And, whether it's one day a week or quarterly, getting in the same room, having that interaction, nothing can replace it.
We got to talk about the video game. The Observer would say this: TNA has no financial stake in the development of their video game for Midway. Interesting also is that there's no blood in the game except for some blood drops in the ring. Things don't look good for Midway as the LA development house that was producing the TNA game has been shut down, with a majority of the employees, including everyone on the TNA game, being given a chance to stay with the company but move to the San Diego office. The public reason given was the move makes it easier for the TNA team to work with the San Diego office. This is said to not affect the release date of the game scheduled for late this year. Midway is counting on big numbers from the game, which many question. Their belief is not only that they would get the TNA television audience, but people from the pro wrestling genre who are looking for something new as opposed to the WWE product. That's where they may be overshooting, because for years, people look at the big dog and think if we just get 10% of their fans to cross over, we'll be healthy. But in the real world, that doesn't happen. Were you worried about your issues with Midway, or what can you tell us about this video game back then?
Dixie and Greg Allison, who was working on the gaming side, who we later hired, they were handling all that day to day. So I was, during this time in development and all that, my personal life, there were so many different things going on, but I was always made aware. But when I heard the news, they're having some issues internally, but it was explained from the very beginning. The game is a huge priority. It's a top priority. Everything's going to be okay. And it turned out, what was really cool from our perspective, the folks in TNA that had been there from day one, 2002, is that, wow, okay, so they've got this kind of priority on the game and they're developing it and they've put massive resources behind it. But, it was something that even in our creative meetings, guys would ask me, and I'm like, look, at the end of the day, I'm not a gamer, but it better be a good game. And, over the last 2 years, Conrad, I've kind of found out even more is that there was the right expectations internally. And I kind of remember that money was made off of the game, obviously, but it was a good game.
Yep.
And I'm going around saying all this is things were happening in that organization that we had zero control over, and we knew it. And in spite of that, we did all right.
Let's talk about Savio Vega. He makes some news here. Savio Vega has been talked about being an agent, with Scott D'Amore leaving. The company agents at this time are Jim Cornette, Glenn Gilberti, and Pat Kenny, with Kenny handling most of the house shows. Vega's being talked about as a replacement for D'Amore. Vega would be tight with Dutch Mantel in particular because of all the years they worked together in Puerto Rico. People rave about Cornette, but the problem is he's only there for mostly TVs and stuff in Orlando, as he won't go on the road. Also, when there are pay-per-views in a different city than Orlando, which is most of the time now, he won't go because he refuses to fly. How often did you guys try to pressure Jim into jumping on a plane unsuccessfully?
But I didn't. I mean, that's the deal we cut. I cut. I mean, I get that. I got a family member who's not fond of flying. But no, and so I mean that was it. And Conrad, Corny had no problem driving from Louisville to Orlando. Cornette put him. He's old school. Put him behind the wheel, and he'll take off. But just wasn't part of it. But we managed that situation. And back to Savio Vega, my relationship started with him way back when he was TNT in Puerto Rico. So we'd kind of come up together, and I'll call it in his youth, he was so over in Puerto Rico, but his psychology was always so good. So I was still am a big Savio fan, but I was a big fan of getting him on board. And I knew that DeMore had started to plant the seeds that he may need to go away because of his family situation.
Let me give a heads up to our international listeners. Louisville, Kentucky to Orlando, Florida is a 2-hour flight or a 12-hour drive. He would still opt for the 12-hour drive.
Yep.
The next time we see Impact, we learn that the 6 Sides of Steel match with Booker and Samoa Joe is not just a cage match. Now it's weapons in the cage. And the 6-man that was supposed to happen is now Team 3D taking on Rhino and Christian in a New Jersey street fight. So it's no longer a 6-man. Now it's just a tag team match in a New Jersey street fight. Machismo, Shark Boy, and Curryman are going to defeat Johnny Devine, Jimmy Rave, and Lance Rock. We know him these days as Lance Hoyt. And afterwards, Machismo is going to propose to SoCal Val again. But he notices that the ring is gone from her hands, and in fact, it was stolen by Sanjay Dutt. Everybody's doing their job in this story, and we're keeping it clicking along. But man, Wade Keller was pretty critical of what you guys were doing with Sting. Tanae and West talked about how Joe seems convinced Sting has turned on him. They've written Joe to look like a total idiot in this storyline, not to mention a hothead with the temperament of a 4-year-old and the deductive skills of a simpleton. It's interesting because we're trying to get Sting over as a heel, or are we really? And maybe we're not booking Joe strong as a result. Booker and Joe are going to brawl in the cage. Nash is going to hold the door shut. Sharmell tries to break in, and Nash carries her to the back while the baseball bat drops. Joe's distracted. Booker uses the bat to take advantage. Was anybody complaining about creative in this era? I mean, was Joe happy? Was Sting happy? Was Booker happy? Do you recall?
Happy's relative word. They weren't walking around PO'd off all the time, but by the nature, and let me say this, by the culture that I thought we had built there, is that I welcomed as much input as possible because, lack of a better word, Booker had been to the dance and been successful. Kevin Nash had been to the dance and been successful. I respect everybody's opinion and wanted to hear it. I didn't mind being, at the end of the line saying, nope, this is the way we're going. But when you create that environment, you always end up having to tell some folks, no, we're not going to go your direction. Sometimes on certain TV days, guys can take that with a grain of salt and say, okay, we'll go this direction. Other days, they can maybe have some extenuating circumstances going on in their life, and they decide that don't work for me, all that kind of stuff. We never did talk bash at the beach, did we? But just the creative culture that we had, I thought was productive, but it always from time to time would rear its ugly head. But specifically as it relates to Sting and going down that heel route and, Wade not liking any of it. I think we said 3 weeks ago, heading Sting, and even, I'm not saying a full-blown heel, but just in a antagonist role, you're always kind of walking a slippery slope just because of the character he had built for 20 years.
Well, it's interesting because it does feel like, for whatever reason, Wade had a hard on for the way you guys were booking Joe and Sting. And if you're looking for a hard on, can I recommend BlueChew? It's a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but in chewable form and at a fraction of the cost. Take them anytime, day or night. You can be ready to plan ahead or whenever opportunity arises, maybe a little run-in action. Sign up at BlueChew.com. Easy for me to say. That's BlueChew.com. You'll consult with one of their licensed medical providers. And once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. And it's time to go to Pound Town. The best part, it's all done online. No visits to the doctor's office. No awkward conversations. No waiting in line at the pharmacy. Just stroke after stroke after stroke. Just hitting your finish all over the place. BlueChew's tablets are made in the USA, prepared and shipped directly to your door, all in a discreet package, but there won't be anything discreet about your package. And let me explain, guys, this isn't just for guys who have a problem. This is for guys who are wanting to put on a show. I can't tell you how many times I get a DM and they say, hey man, my anniversary's coming up. Do you think I could get my order in time? Yes, you can. Go to BlueChew.com. That's what your spouse really wants. Yeah, you could give them a gift card or think of something nice, but let's make a memory. Let's leave them with a lasting impression. You could be missing out on the best sex of your life. Check it out. It's BlueChew.com, and they want to help you have better sex. So you can discover your options right now at BlueChew.com. Chew it and do it, folks. How about this for a special deal? Want to try it for free? Well, now you can. Just use our promo code MyWorld at checkout. You'll pay $5 shipping. That's it. That's BlueChew.com. The promo code is MyWorld. You'll receive your first month free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we want to thank BlueChew for sponsoring today's podcast and our wieners. That's BlueChew.com. Use that promo code MyWorld. So Jeff, let's get back into it here. We should talk about this little interview segment that Karen did in consecutive weeks here. It's called Karen's Angle. And she's going to sit down with Kaz. It's a pretty heartfelt promo. Part 2 gets down to the nitty gritty where he's saying, man, I feel like I let the company down because I lost my big matches. I've tried to make the most of my opportunities, but maybe it's better to burn out than fade away, because I met with TNA management and as of now, I'm no longer on the TNA roster. I've made the decision to walk away. He's holding back tears and says he wants to see what's out there for him. He's thanking the wrestlers and the fans, but says it's time to focus on him now. Karen says she's sorry that he's made that decision. Maybe over time he'll reconsider because there will be a lot of saddened fans. And she gets up and gives him a hug. And Tenay said the cameras kept rolling after Kaz left the set. And then Tomko walks in and begins throwing around the table on the set. And he said her husband sent him in to make her life a living hell. Karen shouting for someone to help her. And this whole story seems a little weird because Tomko actually quits the promotion at these tapings. Meltzer would write, things started to go bad for him when he had all that momentum for a babyface run and then swerved the audience. They turned him back heel and he's been pretty much dead ever since. He hurt himself in the eyes of the company a few months back when he missed a fan fest the day before a pay-per-view to take a date with the Inoki Federation over in Japan. Even though he was told by management not to go, he was suspended for 30 days and his push was cut way back from there. Because he lives at a high standard, money is of a major concern, and he was always visibly disappointed when he wasn't booked on TV. He felt he could have been used better and came in and quit. He's booked on the August 15th show for Inoki at Sumo Hall. WWE's been interested ever since he started getting over in TNA. He left WWE on good terms, telling them he would rather go to Japan and up his game and come back in a few years rather than flounder, not get much ring time to improve. And Meltzer would say, not sure of his non-compete, but he wouldn't be surprised to see him end up in the WWE. How do we get to this point, man? What was going on with Tomko? Was Meltzer on the money here? Is there more to it? You're muted, Jeff.
Sorry about that, pal. I don't say Meltzer's on the money, but man, I mean, he's close. But I was just sitting there thinking about it. Dave more or less knew all this. If he knew all that information, I don't know if the suspension's right. I think that may be, I don't know if Terry Taylor or maybe that was accurate, but Tomko was like a few folks, low key comes to mind. There's a couple of folks that would come in that we wanted them, but we wanted them full time. And that was absolutely storytelling, Spike TV, kind of the whole mindset of, look, we want you on the team. But Tomko was like, okay, I've got a deal over in Japan that's, whether they were paying him equal, a little more or a little less, it was, you can't serve two masters type of situation. And he tried to do both, missing the Fan Fest when I think he actually said, I'll be there. And then he last minute, nope, I won't be there. Just things like that. We knew that we weren't his priority. So there was no hard feelings. I don't even think on his side. We just said, all right, this isn't going to work out. We'll use you when we can, and maybe even let Japan know that Japan is their priority if you hadn't already. Because I think he was trying to make both companies happy, and it just wasn't going to work at that time with the Inoki Group's schedule.
Where are we going with this Kaz story? And what did you think of Karen's performance on her little interview segment here, Karen's angle?
You know, I asked her because there was very few of these. I remember Karen's angle and all that, but I don't, Russo concept, Russo produced. Again, there wasn't a lot of them, but I asked Karen, I said, what do you remember? And she's like, they never really got started. Inside baseball. I don't think Dixie liked it and canned it. I mean, because I'm like, well, why did it end? What happened here? But you know, the reality is Karen's skill set probably didn't fit this as well. She's not, you know, can she be interviewed? Yes. If she's the interviewer, not quite. And you know, that I just don't think that's her skill set, but she had a blast doing it. She knew the Tomko deal was kind of a continuation because I think, if I remember correctly, Russo saying, hey, we'll keep a storyline going, because that's obviously was the Tomko deal. Him quitting that day, I don't think that's accurate. I think there was, we had those discussions on, hey, man, this ain't going to work if we're part-time for you guys. But keeping some type of storyline going outside of the Karen Angle interview role was that situation. But it's the best I recall of it. But I asked Karen, did you have fun? She said, oh, I had a blast doing it.
The episode does a 1.1 rating. We've got 1.6 million people watching the show. That's a 6-month high. And maybe part of that, remember now, this is 2008, is because the main event is a ladies match. It's Gail Kim and Taylor Wilde taking on the Beautiful People. They go 9 minutes. And afterwards, we're going to see Joe in the rafters. He's in a rage, yelling, Sting, Sting. The camera turns and shows a black crow in the rafter area. So yeah, we got our big guy out there in the last, closing credit scene of the show. But the main event being the knockouts, it sets a 6-month high. Man, you're onto something with these ladies, are you not?
Beautiful People. And I, looking at the research and reading that, Conrad, and I think about today's product that both organizations, AEW, WWE, the picture-in-picture, it's almost like you don't even have any more segments of, I can remember Russo. Oh, he would drive him nuts. He's like, bro, do you realize we had a 3-minute and 50-second break? How many commercials do they got to run? There's no picture-in-picture, no nothing. So, I'm wondering what that meant on that time of the wrestling match. Did they time, seg 1 and then into seg 2, or this, anyway, tag match, it worked. The knockouts were clicking. And again, I'm going to go back to the diverse roster, the Beautiful People. I've said it so many times. They didn't mind being true heels, and they were true heels, and the people knew it. And, heels draw money.
Yeah, they do.
They just do.
Let's talk about some other, listen, it's high fives all around, 6-month high on the rating, But it's not just trouble with Tomko at this set of tapings. Kevin Nash is upset too. It's written, Nash walked out of the tapings as well. He has a creative control deal where he has to approve of whatever they book for him in his contract. He was booked on the July 29th show, which would air on August 7th for a Weapons Gauntlet Royal Rumble style match, as well as an interview. He was already mad at TNA because at the Victory Road show, he had a scheduled vacation until the 15th. And that pay-per-view, of course, was the 13th. And he figured he's not booked on this pay-per-view. It's in Houston, by the way. And then he got a call that he had to be on the pay-per-view. So he cut his vacation 2 days short. And when he got there, his only segment was that deal where he told Joe he had his back and told Joe that not under any circumstances did he have to worry about him. And after he saw the script of the show, he gets mad that it's a weapons match because he doesn't like being in weapons matches. And there's a constant complaint within the company that there are too many weapons matches. And even more so now that they're doing a weapons gauntlet match on free TV, when we're selling a pay-per-view that includes a weapons cage match, a weapons street fight, and a last man standing match, and oh yeah, a chain match. Then he saw he was being eliminated third, and he's going to be eliminated during a commercial break. And he figured that since he at this point is supposed to main event the September pay-per-view against Joe, none of this made any sense. And there were stories that also made him mad at how he was going to be eliminated. But the impression I had is the script he saw only mentioned BG James, Lance Rock, and Nash as the first three guys out, all doing the first commercial break. Nash said he wasn't doing it and went home. And while that would have been it for 90% of the people on the roster, obviously he knew he'd get away with it. And even people who aren't enamored with Nash were not criticizing him for this one. It appears the idea stemmed from the story a few weeks back about Vince McMahon being mad at how Michael Cole went to a break, and people would think a match can't end during the break since they never do. Russo saw this as one of those things that never happens in wrestling, so he wanted to do it. But instead of having one guy eliminated, well, if one guy is good, then three must be better. What do you remember about Kevin being frustrated? Do you remember the hurt feelings about cutting the vacation short? And where did you stand on this whole, hey, yeah, it doesn't make sense that nobody ever loses a match during a commercial break. Maybe we should. And Kevin Nash saying, not today.
If Kevin was hot, it wouldn't be the first time, wouldn't be the last time. But me and Kevin always had a good relationship. And if he didn't really like something, he would either come to me or text me. But look, he may have not liked it. As far as the eliminations, Conrad, I'd love to see the format because I'm not sure Nash, BG James, yeah, maybe we just for time's sake eliminated during the break. And when we come back out of it, we show the replays. That's an option. Or in the format is those three are going to get eliminated before we go to commercial break. So it sounds like maybe some good newsletter reading, or it may be completely accurate. But at the end of the day, an elimination in the Battle Royal isn't something to leave TV about.
Right.
And the pay-per-view verbiage, him coming back early, if that is the reality, look, nobody likes their vacation cut short, but kind of going back to the Tomko set of circumstances, when you're writing TV, you kind of want to write TV with your crew. And I just can't imagine us saying, nope, he's got a vacation in the books. We told him we could have off, and we're going to renege on that. I just don't see that happening. But again, good story for a newsletter.
Meltzer would say, you guys had some house shows for 3 days before you do 2 days of TV. So maybe it's just 5 days of these guys working together. Not that Nash was on all those house shows, but Tomko was. But he felt like maybe there was more grumpiness than normal, which I guess is logical. He also mentions that as part of the office expansion, they have a nearly completed 20,000 square foot TV studio in Nashville, which would include in-house DVD production, stand-up sets, a place to house the tape library and merchandise. And the new setup should be ready in September. In October, they'll do a lot of pre-tapes that week in the studio. They've added new office space in the building they lease as well. The company's doing very well financially, to the point they're now paying Panda Energy back on the tens of millions they put into the company the first few years before it started breaking even. What can you tell us about this new office, man?
I loved it. I mean, it was, as an organization, expanding, and I think we did it 3 times. Obviously the third time being the biggest, but it was cool, man. I mean, the post-production house having a full-blown studio, it also gave us I don't call it a merchandise warehouse, but because we also had an off-site warehouse, but a merchandise area, had a big boardroom, seated probably, we used to have our staff meetings, but it's seated probably 20 on a wall, 22, I don't know, 35, 40 folks, huge 4 or 5 tables put together, but all the Wi-Fi and the cameras and all that. But just the expansion was good. First floor and third floor, incoming station. But again, it was that culture that just continued to create and filling heads, executives, interns, and everything in between. Just that kind of regular cadence of a growing company. And, I don't think you glossed over it, but the big thing back was paying the Carters their money back, as an investment. I've said it a gazillion times, I'm super grateful, for the Carters and everything they did, but tight leash. I respect that. They wanted their money back, but when we started being able to pay it back, that's a hell of a good feeling that you're making you're making good on the gamble that he took on us. It was really cool.
Somebody else that we both think a lot of that makes the newsletter is Mike Weber. He's going to be hired here as vice president of marketing. Weber's worked for the WWF and WCW in the 90s in marketing and communications and has a lot of experience working with the cable companies. He was WCW's pay-per-view guy at one point, and after WCW folded, he went to work on the Monster Truck Tour. That's the timeline's not exactly right. He left before WCW was done, but man, getting Mike Weber involved, how does that come to be?
I don't know the original end, but I worked with Mike a little bit in WCW. It's funny, he worked on the original, I hate to say original, I think Mania 1, 2, and 3 or 1. I mean, as a fresh out of University of Ohio. No, as a young guy. But man, him working his way up, and then us getting the opportunity. Again, a guy with an executive who not just had a Rolodex, because, hires, especially at certain levels, you're hiring for relationship. You're buying a Rolodex, you're renting a Rolodex, but you're also concepts and visions and kind of a seasoned vet. He was a good fit, worked there several years, worked for us for several years. And then, he was the one who, it's crazy when I think back on that story, the Global Force and New Japan deal, and Mike is my pay-per-view guy. I hired him, and he brings me, hey man, what do you think about this organization called FITE? He originally brought that. What could have been, I hate that they're on their tough times now, but Weber, been with him a long, long time, 20 something years.
Let's talk about the go home episode of Impact before we get into the pay-per-view. Mike Tenay is selling. This will be the most violent hardcore pay-per-view of the year. And we start the show with something kind of fun. Sanjay Dutt taking on Curryman. And of course, we're knee deep in this SoCal Val business. Super Eric is going to come down along with Shark Boy. They're going to press slam Dutt in a feat of superhero strength. And then Super Eric does something we've never seen on televised wrestling before. He reaches down the front of the tights of Sanjay Dutt and he grabs something and he pulls it out. It's the missing ring. It's SoCal Val's missing ring. He tries to explain that it fell off when she was at the hospital and he's saved it ever since. And maybe it was wishful thinking. My goodness. We're going to have him hide it in the front of his tights. What a story.
X-ray vision.
It's amazing.
Look at Ritesh.
Oh, goodness. Next up, we've got Awesome Kong and Salinas. It's just a total destruction. 20 seconds. After the match, the beautiful people are going to come out and start mocking Salinas. Then said she knows ODB. Kim and Taylor are walking in the back. man, we're doing whatever we can to get these ladies involved. And I mean, this is interesting because we know their ratings, but we're also kind of throwing Abyss in here too. What's the thinking? And let's involve Abyss with all the ladies.
Refresh my memory. Hasn't he been off for a while? I think he'd been off for a while, but you know, the found at this stage, the Beautiful People heel tag team that very diverse. I mean, they could work with anybody, single or tag, because if you're in a single match, the other one's still out there on the floor. It all worked. But Kong had the run with Gail, and she was such a mainstay and very.
She sets up an awesome bomb. Awesome Kong does. And they play Abyss's music, and down he comes to make the save. The idea being, who can stop her? She's this unstoppable monster. She'll destroy all the ladies. Who can stop her? Well, how about Abyss?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting. I'm not complaining. I just wonder, you know, what did you think of that creative? Did you think you'd ever pay that off? Did you think, hey, we're going to get to Kong versus Abyss?
I don't think we were looking at that. I think we wanted to, gosh, I'm just trying to think through all this. I don't think we were looking at that, but we did want to put those two on camera at the same time. I'm going to go back to episodic storytelling. How do we kind of create an intriguing matchup? Again, we made the conscious effort. We tried to serve two masters, pay-per-view buys and television ratings. But at the end of the day, television ratings were always, we wanted that second program. We wanted the increase in rights fees and da-da-da-da-da-da. It's what we wanted. So we always wanted to increase that number. And so an Abyss, Awesome Kong face-off, probably never going any further than that, but it puts them on the stage, was intriguing.
What's intriguing is what Kevin Nash walked out on. It's this weapons gauntlet match. It's Kurt Angle, Tomko, Kip James, and Booker T against AJ, Samoa Joe, Matt Morgan, and BG James. Jeremy Borash is going to stand in the middle of the ring and talk for about 7 minutes explaining the rules of this silly shit. And maybe my favorite part is that Joe's weapon is a Chinese yo-yo.
A what?
Chinese yo-yo.
Come on, Connie.
Yep. Booker has Sting's black baseball bat, but Samoa Joe has the yo-yo.
Can we see that? I'd love to see that. But
after the match, Samoa Joe is going to say at Hard Justice, the champ comes for his belt. And after he's done with Booker, Sting is next. Sting's music then plays. West is wondering if he'd finally show up. The lights go down. Spotlights flicker in a strobe light fashion. And then Joe sees an image of Sting in the rafters, and Joe points up at him with his Chinese yo-yo.
Yo-yo.
Yo-yo. And the go-home impact gets a 1 rating. It draws the highest 18 to 49 rating since you guys went to 2 hours. It's got to feel like, man, we got everything pointing in the right direction. But usually when I say that, here's some bad news. The Observer says this. Regarding what happens with Sting, the decision hasn't been made yet. Usually TNA plans things well in advance, but in this case, Russo wants to turn Sting heel because it's the double swerve. He has everyone, like the announcers and Styles and Joe, going so strong that Sting is going heel, and he thinks that the fans will then believe for sure he's not turning, so he can swerve them by turning him. Russo discussed this with Sting in Houston at the pay-per-view, and Sting wasn't on board when it was over. If Russo can convince him to go heel, he will. If not, he won't. The fact Russo turned him heel once before in WCW, and it was such a flop that nobody booed him, and 3 weeks later he was back as a face without even a turn back, doesn't matter. Worse, the TNA TV crowd consists of 70% of people who are tourists from out of town who don't regularly watch the program, so getting them to boo Sting won't be easy. Among the 30% who are regulars, there's also a chance they'll just reject it because Sting is not seen as special. He's just a regular. I don't know about that, but do you remember Sting meeting with Russo in Houston and Russo trying to talk him into going heel and Sting being very hesitant?
I think there was always an ongoing discussion, and we're laying this, I can't say we're laying specific seeds, but the Main Event Mafia was maybe not that storyline, But again, I think I covered this a couple of weeks ago. Sting is a thinker. He's not going to do a knee-jerk reaction. Things have to be discussed over and over and over. Although maybe Russo definitely wanted to do the heel turn. Just the, knowing, again, I'm going to go back to, at this stage, this is 2008. So the Stinger came on screen in 88, so to speak, on the Flair deal. So we're talking a 20-year on-top career as a babyface. And as hot as the NWO was, he was never really a heel there either. So just getting the people to buy in to Sting switching heel, it goes a lot deeper than a storyline. You have your licensing folks, you have your merchandise. Are we really going to change his character? Sting thought through all those kind of things. It wasn't just, hey, I'm going to be a heel one week and a babyface the next. He look where we're at now in 2023. He's protected that character so well, and there's still a boatload of value in it. And it's one of the reasons is he's always really thought things through and had handled things with kid gloves at all time.
Let's talk about the pay-per-view. We're finally here, but before we do, we should mention that you and I start each and every day with a big old delicious scoop of AG1. Jeff, tell everybody how AG1 tastes for real.
Delicious. I have it every morning at 5:40ish. But no, just a scoop. I just got my real order now. And Conrad, and I'm not going to get into your read, they will send there for a while, but now they'll send you individual packs, travel packs. Yep. I mean, you can get the whole order. Used to, I think it was 5 at a time or 10 at a time. Now you can get your entire order in travel packs. So there's really no excuse about it. I know my man Satnam drinks it. Jay Lethal drinks it. It is quite the buzz, and I see some knockoffs out there online. But if you read about the science, which I did, and dig in deep with an AG1 tutorial, if you will, and really understand what it's all about, it's the best. I started taking this, I don't know, a year and a half ago. I don't think I've missed a day. That's how important I think it is. And I do think not just energy, but I think overall digestion and gut health is at the very, very top of my list. Why do I do it? Karen's asked me, why are you so religious about that? Well, I'll tell you why, honey, because I've got to assimilate a lot of protein. The old last outlaw, as Connie well knows, I eat quite a bit. And so if I'm going to eat, I want to make sure I digest it right. And AG1, get your digestive tract on track.
There you go. It's a daily foundational nutritional supplement that supports whole body health. We take it every day. You should too. My wife does it on her way to the gym. She feels like she's more productive there and she feels better. She has more energy. And I feel like I have more energy too. I feel like it helps me with my focus. I feel like it helps me not crash in the afternoon. I mean, I used to have an opportunity to take a little nap at the office. Not anymore, man. AG1 has replaced my multivitamin, my probiotic. It's all one simple drinkable habit. It's a science-driven formula with vitamins, with probiotics, with whole food source super ingredients. They've raised the standard. You're going to love it. I'm a fan. You're a fan. Everybody we know is starting their day with 75 high quality ingredients to give you everything you need to support energy and focus and strength and clarity. Think of it as like your all-in-one nutritional insurance. What are you waiting for? Try it right now. If a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/myworld. That's drinkag1.com/myworld. Check it out. You'll be glad you did. So Jeff, let's get into it. We're finally here at the pay-per-view. You're in New Jersey. And man, it's got to be considered a success. You've got 35,000 buys. That's 10,000 more buys than the last pay-per-view and up 10,000 from the prior year. So we're seeing progress there, but again, we're in the Northeast. So Meltzer's not totally sure that this was a success from a live perspective. He says the show drew 3,500 fans to Sovereign Bank Arena in Trenton, New Jersey, another figure that has to be considered disappointing TNA now has a policy that they will no longer paper the pay-per-view main events, feeling it's not good long-term business. That would make sense if they were running cities 6 times a year, because if you give away a ton of tickets in the market, you have a hell of a time selling them in the future. But for cities where they come once or less per year, it probably doesn't matter. At the same time, TNA giving away tickets isn't going to get that many extra people, as a niche product like this would be lucky to get 50% of the freebies to come. And if they aren't showing majestic, full lit up arena shots on TV, it probably doesn't matter if the seats aren't full anywhere but on camera. Let's unpack a lot there. First of all, were you disappointed with 3,500 tickets sold?
No, but and it's now, well, I don't even want to say nowadays. It's always been kind of that. It's a, what do they call that when not a shell game, but just look, at the end of the day in Orlando might not have been as sexy, but there were no, we were paying for the studio. The production was hung. Yet you had to pay the truck rental for the day and the talent, but our cost to take pay-per-views out of Orlando, and I understood it, but going full tilt from day one, I was not a fan of. So the money that we made off 3,500 fans, and maybe the buy rate, we were up this month, but in that, 25 to 40 range or whatever it was, it's all kind of numbers. So we were happy with the amount of fans. I do remember kind of going into the show, or even a couple of weeks out, that, all right, we're tracking, we weren't expecting to sell out. We weren't selling out anywhere. And again, such a different era. 2008, Twitter was just born. Social media was really just being born. So you had to depend so much on buying TV and radio advertisement and multiple media days. So it was very expensive to run on the road, to say the least, but we were happy with it. Yes.
So now the second part I want to ask about is your approach and attitude towards papering, because we haven't really talked about this before, but I have heard, hey, if you give away too many tickets and people know, yeah, I could run down and buy tickets, or I could just wait and get a free one as the event gets closer and we approach that date. Maybe you train and condition the audience, hey, don't buy tickets, they'll just give them away. And eventually you sort of burn or quote unquote kill the town. Nobody buys tickets anymore. So I get that's what Meltzer's driving at, that you're not really running this market 6 times a year. You're running it very rarely. So why not paper it? Did your dad have a strong opinion on that? I realize by this point in 08, your dad's not involved, but did he have a rule of thumb for when to do it or when not to do it?
The generations will go back. You didn't do it. I can't even say it's a cardinal rule, but you're creating the value of your product, would be his mindset. As I guess you could say, as things have gone along, and look, the music business, the comedy business, any touring business, you just don't want to do that, because you're immediately putting a value on you're establishing the value of your product by giving it away free. Minor league baseball, when you hear that mindset, we're not fans of it at all, just because you're establishing a value yourselves. Now, other people, third parties and brokers, and they've already bought the ticket and they want to get some money back for it, then you get into a whole nother different discussion. But no, I'm not a big fan of it at all. I think that's the market telling you one way or another. As time has moved on, and the difficulty it is, on the one hand, to really market, because there's so much in the marketplace, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and all that. Yes, you can reach a target audience, but there's also so many other things that they're bombarded with. So I think the old saying, creating a value for your brand or your event by giving away tickets, I think that effect has lessened through the years. We're talking about 2008. I think it was a double-sided. I wasn't a fan of it, just because, you have enough. Don't go on the road if you can't shoot enough, if you can't sell enough to shoot a product that it looks good on TV. I just think it's that simple. you're making a mistake. And look, if you have the outlier and like, okay, we didn't sell good here, but next one, again, I think it comes with the 6 P's. Proper planning prevents piss poor performance. You got to have a heads up on that. So I'm not a fan of papering, Conrad.
Talk to me about Ice-T. I understand he was supposed to be in the opening segment here with Grandmaster Kaz and Filthy rapping while Melly Mel is running around. He, as I understand it, didn't make his flight out. He was working a show the night before with ICP, and I guess they had bad weather. Kevin Nash was on that same show. He made it. Ice-T didn't. Were you disappointed that Ice-T wasn't here, or did it really matter?
So my man Filthy that that you just saw on camera, we go way back. He's an LA dude. I think he lives over. I know he lives over in Carolinas now, but I met him. Conrad, you're going to like this. I met my man Filthy, who is connected. That Malcolm Gladwell book talks about connectors and all that kind of stuff and how valuable it is. Filthy is an OG connector, but I originally met Filthy on the back of a golf cart at the Gathering. ICP's.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but we hit it off. Just came kind of instant buddies and stayed in contact. But he's a hustler and super talented in the hip hop genre. But again, connected. And I can remember him telling me, "No, Jeff, Ice-T," and I'm like, "Come on, Filthy, you ain't gonna get Ice-T to come to the arena." And yeah, and Grandmaster. Anyway, so what do you say? He didn't make his connecting flight, but there were some issues. Kevin was probably on the first flight out. I don't think Ice-T was on the first flight out of wherever they were coming from. But Filthy, he's done some theme music. He's been involved in video games with us. Good relationship. Nice guy. Talented. A man, Filthy.
Let's talk about the matches. We got Petey Williams. He's going to be wrestling Consequences Creed, and Petey gets the win, so he retains the X title in a very good opener. It goes 12 minutes and 30 seconds. The Torch gave it 3 stars. Dave gave it 3.25 stars. The finish would see Sean Daivari, who's now using his Sheikh Abdul Bashir gimmick, hit Creed in the back with a chair. Williams gets the pin after the Canadian Destroyer. And Wade says the plan is a 3-man feud over the X title. What a hot start. I mean, this feels like the old days of Nitro. We get those cruiserweights out there showing what they can do. At this point, we've seen the Canadian Destroyer for 4 or 5 years, but it's still such a hot move, even to this day. And of course, as we touched on earlier, Consequences Creed, a very young Xavier Woods.
If you're a New Day fan, go watch this.
Yes, really good stuff.
Well, he had it from day one. He just did. I'm so happy for his success, but we would chuckle and text Consequences Creed.
Next up, we get the ladies out here, Taylor Wilde and Gail Kim teaming up with ODB to take on Angelina Love, Velvet Sky, and Awesome Kong. They go 11.5 minutes, and Tracy Brooks is the referee. And if you're watching on YouTube, let me just say she had the best referee top of all time. The Observer gave it 3 stars. The Torch gave it 2.25. Wilde is going to pin Love with a rolling front cradle. And I mean, listen, they did a high rating. They were the main event of the highest rated show in 6 months, and they're second on the card. Do you think maybe they deserved better placement, or is that not the priority since it's not TV and it's a pay-per-view?
And show flow. I never believed I mean, the main event needs to be the main event, but as far as order of matches on a pay-per-view, it's really all about show flow. I mean, I just think it's that simple. Like, we talked a couple of months ago, or maybe not even that far back, a guy like Frankie Kazarian or a multi-talented individual who can have a match with anybody. So sometimes they may be late in the card. And why? Well, because they can deliver and they will get the people regardless because of their in-ring work. Other times, again, it just depends on top to bottom, what kind of show you want to present. It didn't reflect on their position at all.
Next up, we got Robert Roode and James Storm beating Homicide and Hernandez to win the tag titles in 14 minutes and 15 seconds. Wade gave it 2 stars. Dave gave it 3.5 stars. Beer Money Man beating a team in Homicide and Hernandez. This is as OG TNA maybe as it gets, right?
Beer Money, is this? I don't know. This is them just getting started. Did you say
Yes.
that? Do we even call them Beer Money here yet?
Yeah, Beer Money Inc.
Yeah, so we're at that stage. Yeah.
Yes.
Wonder if it's their first tag title. God, sometimes these months run together. But anyhow, great tag team. Great tag team. Their sum total is of their parts. It worked on every level.
Next up, something that maybe worked in storyline wise, but in execution, I don't know. Jay Lethal's going to pin Sanjay Dutt in a black tie brawl and chain match. That's what we're calling it. Not a ball and chain, but a brawl and chain. And Meltzer would say, this is one of those ridiculous matches with steps nobody knew ahead of time. I guess they were announced on TV, but it's not like anyone in the arena or at home had a clue until the match started. They're dressed in tuxedos with black ties and they have a chain, but you can win the match by tearing the clothes off of your opponent. The problem was the whole idea of a chain match is to wrap your fist with the chain and hit your opponent with it and have them bleed. But the company doesn't want any blood because they want to save it for the main event. So they've done better not having any steps and weapons on the undercard and just save that for the main. But they do a lot of comedy spots with the chain instead. The match ends with a lethal combination followed by an elbow off the top. The crowd crapped on the match, even though these guys were working hard, particularly when they're just tearing each other's clothes off. There were lots of fire Russo chants because the stip ruined the match. 2.25 stars on the Observer, 1.25 stars for the Torch. This has been a fun storyline, and I can only imagine how bad you felt for those guys. Like, man, we had a good story. They had a lot of fun, and the fans just were not with it. What do you remember?
And taking it on the road, in Trenton, it's one of those situations. These types we ran into so many times. All right, we're going to take the product on the road, but Orlando, we have regulars who understood the storylines. Coming into a Trenton, New Jersey for essentially a one-off with all brand new fans, but you're hypothetically some of these fans, yes, they're familiar with TNA, but it's a brand new wrestling brand. It's the alternative, but you're going to ask them to be bought into at this point, 2-month, 3-month, 4-month storyline. It's very challenging for those guys, like super challenging, but it was what it was. And honestly, we were at the end of the story.
I want to ask you about a promo that's next here on the program. It's not often that we do promos on a pay-per-view like this, but the content of this one in particular sort of had me scratching my head. I mean, you and I both think Booker T's a bona fide Hall of Famer in every Hall of Fame. But the content here, I wonder, this had to be scripted for him. It doesn't feel like something he would say, but maybe I'm wrong. He does a promo and he says that Samoa Joe is a backyard trailer park independent level worker. Now, I understand if he was doing a quote unquote shoot interview on a podcast or something like that and trying to stir it up, but this is the company champion. I don't know, man. I know he's selling, this main event, but I don't know that saying he's a backyard trailer park independent level worker. What? I don't know. What do you think?
I'm gonna go the other way. I can feel Booker during this era with his mindset, and I think he admitted, he wasn't in the best headspace during this time frame of his career. And I also can I can kind of see Book in his mind. I'm going to take it this route as a heel and say, hey, he's a backyard. I'm the real deal. I'm the main eventer. I've been a multi-time, five-time champion, trying to get that juxtaposition that he's the top dog and Joe's just an up-and-comer, trying to kind of get that mindset.
That makes sense.
I don't know that if it resonated. I didn't know if it hit the mark that he wanted, but I think that's the vibe Booker would be going for.
Next up, we've got Christian Cage and Rhino beating Team 3D in a New Jersey street fight. Tons of weapons. Of course, there's ECW and even TNA chants. Wade would write, it's an interesting crowd. They were very into the match, but it wasn't the match as much as popping for the hard, loud sounding weapon shots, using the tables and ladders and chairs and steps and signs. But whenever there's a near fall, the crowd's not into that. Finish would see Christian do a frog splash off the top of an 8-foot ladder on Bubba. And as Bubba gets up, Rhino gores him into a table. The table didn't break fully, although it cracked. Because of the table not fully breaking, it was a flat finish. Johnny Devine came out after the match and hit Christian and Rhino with kendo sticks. They brought out Abyss, who laid out Devine with a black hole slam. The Torch gave it a 1.5 stars. I want to ask you about that. Like, you're one of the only folks I can really ask about this because you've done it all. And later this week, I think you might actually cut Jeff Hardy's head off on Turner. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So I don't know if you're going to use a chainsaw or what that looks like, but
Should it be a blue man? I'm trying to think what brand chainsaw I should bring. We'll discuss that later.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you though, were they not popping for the finishes? Like normally when there's a kick out, if we're just watching, say, Brock Lesnar and Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam, they put on a clinic. And man, there was a big pop for every false finish, not just the pinfalls, but when Cody would beat the count coming from outside of the ring, back in the ring, there'd be a big reaction. Here, we're not getting the reaction for that. We're getting it for the weapons. I guess you know that going in. Does it change the way you structure a match, Jeff? Do you know they're not going to pop for a false finish? They're going to pop for a garbage can shot. Do you build the match differently because of that?
Case by case situation, but storytelling. You use Brock Cody. That story started in May, I think. So
April, the night after WrestleMania, April.
Okay. So three or 4 month old story. But they've ingrained it. We're talking about two red hot entities. I think that has a lot to do with it. I also think the vibe and the aura and everything that goes with it. Let me say this. Trenton is right across the bridge from Philly. Heel crowd to the umpteenth. We're coming in there for our very first show. That crowd wanted to see violence. They weren't into the story. That's why I was saying story. Jay Lethal and Sanjay, you can just hear a Philadelphia crowd. I don't want to see you guys tear each other's clothes off, beat the hell out of each other. Just that mentality. And I don't want to call it an independent show feel, but it's the being introduced to the audience. The stories, we had 2 hours on Thursday night. We had either 3 or 4 episodes per month to tell a story. It's just not as ingrained. They're not as invested, and they are truly invested in the Cody Rhodes story. One so much so, and we both know what we think of it. So, this is not a 3-month-old story with Cody. It's a lifetime in a lot of ways. His journey, the whole world knows Cody's got to go through Brock to get back on track, and what's the next roadblock, and just that whole story. So that, to me, to answer your question, when you're laying out a match, I think you have to heavily weigh in from the very beginning. How invested are they in the story?
So if we don't have a big story, they're just going to be looking for
action,
violence. So at that point, that's what we do. We instead of structuring false finishes, we structure
violence.
Yes. Got it.
Hey guys, need to call a quick timeout here. Wanted to tell your listeners what I've been telling my listeners over at OU didn't know for a while now about all the cool things happening over at AdFreeShows.com.
Conrad sits down with a pioneer of wrestling television production, director Dan Bynum, who discusses his journey through WCW, ROH, MLW, and where it all began for him, world class.
What really was the thing that catapulted it was, one, working with Ric Flair. He came to the territory and wrestled with the Von Erich boys and gave us so much gravitas. And two, the greatest feud in the history of wrestling, the Freebird Von Erich feud. So we were there at the hottest time with the hottest show, and we took over the world.
The Yeti, Ron Reese, sits down with AdFreeShows members to talk about his infamous night at Halloween Havoc and how it was received by the boys in the back.
Oh no, I remember like Arn Anderson told me that was the drizzling shits, and Dusty Rhodes was like, that was the worst thing I've ever seen. And I'm just like, hey, thanks.
That's just a small taste of what we got waiting for you. With 4 levels to choose from, see for yourself why AdFreeShows is the best value in wrestling today. Sign up now at AdFreeShows.com.
Next up, it's a last man standing match. Of course, it's all about Karen Angle. AJ Styles has still been sleeping with Karen. So he's going to be wrestling Kurt here for 24 minutes and 50 seconds. It's like an old school Texas death match. The first fall is 17:37 when Angles goes for the Styles Clash, but Styles reverses out of it and gets the ankle lock. And believe it or not, Angle tapped. With the explanation, because of the multiple falls, it totally makes sense to tap out easier because you don't want to take punishment that would keep you from losing the match. Angle used a low blow and 4 Germans. Styles gets up and Angle wins the second fall in 21:33 after a German. And Angle wins the third fall with an Angle slam in 22:05. They're still back and forth, and the finish would see both men standing on the top rope. But Styles would bring Angle back in with a DDT from the top rope to the floor at 24:21. Angle then couldn't answer the bell to start the 6th fall, and Styles was ruled the winner. Angle was put on a stretcher. Styles knocked him off the stretcher and gives him a suplex on the ramp. The lights go out, and it's Sting giving Styles a scorpion death drop, that reverse DDT. It should be noted that Styles claimed he and Sting had talked, and everything was water under the bridge. Nash starts yelling at Sting for attacking Styles, and boy, the newsletters loved it. The Torch gave it 4 stars. The Observer gave it 4 1/4. What'd you think of the match itself? The big bump, I mean, a DDT to the floor, and then the post match with Sting and Kevin Nash.
So, Conrad, I looked at doing the research, and the first time I did the research, felt like a year ago, but two weeks ago. So AJ was, we're talking 08. So we're really talking about 10 years into his career, 8 to 10. Kurt about the same. Kurt had already had his WWE run, AJ, but I really look at 2 guys. I can't say Kurt was early in his prime because he got so good so quick, but let's just say in his prime. And AJ, to me, was coming into his prime. Those guys could put on a clinic.
Yeah.
Both of them really athletic. Kurt's character, super defined. AJ, there's no doubt about that at this stage, he hadn't done the Flair impersonation. He hadn't done I'll call it the Hogan years. You know, AJ was the TNA branded Grand Slam winner. So heel or babyface, but man, just freaking awesome. They are such good storytellers. This kind of match, to me, elevates the whole show. Just really, really, really good.
What'd you think about Sting getting involved at the end?
Probably, like usual, monthly pay-per-view format, maybe a little over storytelling.
Next up, our main event is Samoa Joe and Booker T. Samoa Joe gets the win in 12 minutes and 44 seconds. It's a cage match for the world title, and the cage is filled with weapons. Wade would say numbing weapons shots, garbage cans, lids, chair shots. Joe's going to bleed after a chair shot. Booker chokes Joe with an axe handle. Joe's using a diamond cutter off the top rope. The crowd was flat from following the prior matches, plus using the weapons kills building anything in the match. Again, they popped for the noises, but not really for the match itself. Booker uses an axe kick, but the lights go out.
Bingo. Seen that before.
They come back on, and suddenly Joe has a guitar and clocks Booker with it to take the title. The place didn't pop, partially because it's been a long time since JArrett was on TV, and some people didn't make the connection. But Booker woke up and sold the guitar like he was freaking out. 2.5 stars on the Observer, 2 3/4 on the Torch. Overall, of course, Meltzer was critical of the show, saying it had a flat finish and a weaker main event, but maybe it was just because there were too many gimmicks. Do you think this match would have been better if there weren't weapons in the cage? And I understand why you would add weapons in the cage if you want to find a way to legally use the guitar. I guess that makes sense. But since we've seen it so much through the rest of the show, did it take away from it here in the main event? And why do you think there wasn't a bigger reaction for the guitar? Because you had been gone so long?
Oh, where do I start, Conrad? If you really want to go all the way back to square one, hindsight being 2020, start with AJ and Kurt. Nobody can follow that on the card. And I don't think we probably could put it last, but then you would have said, oh, wait a minute, you can't put your world title match with all the weapons. But look, let's play armchair quarterback here, Conrad, and feel free to jump in. But if we would have started with Kurt and AJ and just torn the house down and done everything we needed to do and pop with Sting and get all that going and put the knockout 6-man before the main event, would we have had a different reaction? My gut says yes. And I was harping a little earlier on show flow, again, just didn't make the right call because Booker and Joe worked their ass off. The storyline gave it to them. We wanted to start the tease in the creative process. I can remember we all were like, oh no, let's do the guitar shot. No, let's don't. They're not going to know what this meeting for. How do Mike and Don cover it that quick? Did they just assume? Just all those things. It doesn't matter what happens in the arena. We're going to use those images on Spike the next week to start telling that story. So don't worry if the reaction isn't over the top. That's, I can hear somebody in the room say, don't worry about, the audience that is going to be critical because nobody reacts to the guitar shot. But again, match order kind of put this match, backed them in a corner because a cage match with weapons in a story can create a lot of violence, but following AJ and Kurt, a little difficult. So they worked their ass off and delivered a good match in what we needed, but they didn't follow the prior match with AJ and Kurt to this audience. I want to make sure I'm saying that to this audience that I'll call it the Philly audience. They love that athleticism and being exposed to the product for the first time. That won them over. And so it was just hard. It was hard to kind of take a right when they were going down the road so well with the Kurt AJ.
Let's talk about what Dave wrote. He says, both the positives and negatives were predictable on the show. Booker was cheered more than Joe, given the job the company has done unintentionally undermining Joe's title run as a babyface. And because the Christian and Rhino and Team 3D match went a little long, Angle and Styles went several minutes long, Joe and Booker had to have a rushed match where the finish came with no build. The guitar is to signify the return of Jeff Jarrett, although live, nobody seemingly got that. On TV, this was an angle that was sold like the angle of all angles, although it was one of those, is this what we think? Is he back? Without mentioning who he was. I think if there are any new TNA fans from the last year plus, they wouldn't have known, but any long-term TNA fans wouldn't have to be told it was Jarrett. How big of an issue is that when guys go long and don't hit their times?
Before I get into that, did you notice what he said in the comments? Booker got a bigger reaction with Joe.
Yep.
That's the catch-22. All right, you got to get the product out on the road, but wait a minute. They're going to know the WWF, WCW talent. Booker's been on national TV since 90 maybe. So at this point, 18 years. Joe had been on Ring of Honor and then TNA. It's so hard to fight against that. And going into a brand new market for us and Joe being our champion, are we doing him a lot of favors? No, we're not. We're just not. As far as guys going over on time, Conrad, oh boy, don't get me started. I think it's one of the single most selfish things you can do. Now, look, 30 seconds here and a minute there, or a minute and a half. I don't want to get into exact numbers here, but a minute. I mean, I get it, but when you get into 3 and 4 and 5 minutes long, it's just selfish. There's no middle ground there, because you're deliberately saying, I'm going to get my time in, screw the rest of the world. And oh, by the way, I made a mistake, so I'm going to make y'all pay for my mistake. I'm not paying for it because I hadn't hit my marks.
Let's do a few questions, then we'll put a bow on this one. Brad Stanton wants to know, you may have answered this before, but where did the name Hard Justice come from?
Conrad Thompson's bedroom. No. So, boy, I think we've talked about it, but there have been many creative meetings on naming pay-per-views, matches, all kinds of concepts and like that. But I was always big on give me the information as early as possible for marketing, or if we're changing something, and let's keep a kind of a running tab. And my man Danny Engler, Rudy Charles, always kept a file, and we would just throw names around, and however it landed, Hard Justice, it's one of those names that stuck.
Here's one from the Matthew Podcast Network. Who pits the black tie brawl and chain match? I know that fans were chanting fire Russo, but I know that he was probably a scapegoat a lot of times, Jeff. Like, if the fans didn't like one thing on the show, oh, it's got to be Russo. Do you remember if that was a Russo idea?
I can't say that it was or wasn't, but people, you're right. Sometimes Vinny Roo would, by default, but in a lot of ways, did he earn that? I don't know. But yeah, he would get blamed for anything that wasn't Wrestling 101. I mean, anything.
Last one here. Dylan Leahy wants to know, what did Booker mean to this era of TNA?
He's in that, well, we're not there in the store, but we've covered it. The Main Event Mafia. Main Event Mafia was the most successful faction, without question. The ratings, when those guys got together, and then we clearly drew a line in the sand against, their opponents were AJ Styles, and, we'll call them and we named them Frontline, the younger guys. And me and Mick were compassionate with both sides. We were generationally in the Main Event Mafia era, but we also wanted to see the young guys up and coming, and all of that was reality based, good, compelling TV. And Booker was very important. You look at the 5 guys that were in the Main Event Mafia, it goes without saying. I think Booker was frustrated. I think mentally where he was at in his career, he had been on the road so many years with WCW. Then, the turmoil on the end of his career at WCW, he became World Heavyweight Champion. But, the business was tanking in so many ways that it wasn't his fault. But then, he goes to WWF and Austin and has that run and everything that goes with all that. By the time he got to us, I can't say he's burnt out, but sometimes his head wasn't in the right place, and he came to Orlando. And when you've worked for really 2 companies, and super capitalized, TNA was an adjustment. I got it loud and clear. It was an adjustment for him. And from a financial perspective, he was making less money than he had made in the 2 prior stops. So that's hard. But Booker is super important to the era of Main Event Mafia and the success of it. No doubt about it.
Well, we're trying to help you have some success. If you're a renter, what are you waiting for? Hurry over to SaveWithConrad.com, and I can show you how now is the right time to buy a house. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, but aren't the rates higher? Yes, they are. But do you reckon your rent is going down next year? Here's a spoiler. It's not. But your house payment could. See, rates go up and down. So I encourage you to date the rate, marry the house. The reality is the real key to home ownership, or the real key to building long-term wealth, is home ownership. Ask Double J. His house is worth like 8 times what he paid for it way back when. Meanwhile, if he was renting, his rent would have gone up every single month. That's not the case when you can refinance into a lower rate. And I know what you're thinking. I don't have a big down payment. You don't need a big down payment. FHA can still get you in a house with just 3.5% down. Fannie and Freddie have options with 5% down. And believe it or not, there's still a handful of 0% money down loans, including a veteran. Man, if you're a veteran and you're paying rent, what are you doing? Let me show you how to get into a house with no money down. And oftentimes your house payment, it's less than your current rent. And oh, by the way, did you know that you can write off the interest you pay on your house? You can't write off any of that rent you're throwing away. And again, you don't need perfect credit. You don't need money out of your pocket. You can actually buy a house just a couple of years removed from bankruptcy. As a matter of fact, there's certain loan programs, including FHA, where you can buy a house while you're still making payments on that. We can show you the way. You don't need perfect credit. You don't need money out of your pocket. You need a plan. That plan starts with us. We're going to ask you things like, what do you want your new house payment to be? What do you want your new down payment to be? That's right. You tell us how much you want to pay down. You tell us what you want your payment to be, and we go make it happen together. It all starts at SaveWithConrad.com. And oh, by the way, how about a little summer vacation from house payments? Take a little Labor Day break from house payments. If you're currently in a house and you have credit card debt and you're feeling stuck like you're making minimum payments, we can get rid of all that debt just like that. See the interest you pay to Discover or Bank of America or American Express. You can't write any of that off, but you can write off the mortgage interest. So not only can you get a better rate, you can also get a lower monthly payment. I recently helped a family save $681 a month, and you can do it too at SaveWithConrad.com. Don't just take my word for it. Check out our A+ rating with the BBB. Check out our over 1,000 5-star reviews at ConradReviews.com and find out how much money you can save at SaveWithConrad.com. And don't forget, tomorrow night, watch Double J, maybe, potentially, murder Jeff Hardy. I mean, I don't know. It's a Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it's happening in Nashville. I'm going to try to be there to just bear witness and maybe fill out the police report. In the meantime, you can catch up on all of our shows early and ad-free over at AdFreeShows.com. Not only do you get a piece of bonus content from every podcast that we have on our network every single month, you also have great new episodes like Making the Town. That's bonus content where we're breaking down historic buildings. Or what about when we catch up with David Crockett to talk about his family's business in 1985, week by week, day by day? How about Insiders? We recently sat down with Dan Bynum and talked about a lot of his innovations in the production of professional wrestling. And we even had a new false finish that's being edited now as we speak with the one and only Zach Gowen. How about that? Lots of bonus content you can't find anywhere else. All available to you right now over at AdFreeShows.com. I want to mention, if your business is targeting men that are 25 to 54 years old, buddy, there's no better place to advertise than right here with us. You hear some of the same sponsors week in, week out for years. You want to know why that is? Because it really works. If your product is looking for dudes, man, we got them. Check it out at advertisewithjarrett.com. Love to have your social interaction. If you've got a question for myself or Jeff Jarrett, you can ask on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram at MyWorldPod. Tons of new swag and merch available for us right now over at boxofgimmicks.com. And the easiest, cheapest, best way to support the program is to check us out on YouTube. That's My World on YouTube.com. But stay tuned, man. There's so much going on in Jeff Jarrett's world. He just stacked up Kenny Omega with the Young Bucks, beat them all at the same time, destroyed Grado. I don't think Grado's even shown his head in public again. I mean, he's out of here. We got WrestleQuest coming down the pike. We got Shoes Baseball right around the corner. Oh, did we mention that Jeff just destroyed Hulk Hogan on the Bash at the Beach 2000 episode on Dark Side of the Ring? We just glossed that over. That was just another day at the office for Double J. And business is going to be picking up in less than 2 weeks. All In is here, the biggest and most important wrestling show since WrestleMania 3. And just 1 week after that, you get to shake hands with Kawada and Dennis Rodman and Sting on the same damn day. And if you're lucky, you'll dodge the Last Outlaws guitar. Everybody is going to Chicago for Starcast. You should make plans to join us. That's StarCast.com. If you can't be there, it's StarCastOnPremiere.com. But don't forget, we're offering mail-ins this year at StarCast.com. Jeff, we got so much going on, man. I don't know how you keep it all straight. I appreciate you making the time for us today, and I can't wait to catch up with you again next week.
Pal, it's enjoyable, very enjoyable. I may have, with the storms coming through, I may have jinxed us out of the gate, but we've got it all behind us. I'm on Wi-Fi now, pal. Lightning speed. Hope everybody enjoyed it. I love doing My World with you, Connie. Always your sense of humor. You throw it in there. And, you know, it's about that time of year. I'm not going to get into it today. But, well, you know what time of year it is. We're about
it's time for Tennessee to prove that they were a fluke last year.
No. It's almost football time in Tennessee. Connie, college football, Pac-12. We haven't talked about any of that nonsense going on in college football. I can't wait to get you here, your viewpoint. I hope the Boogs.
Goodness.
I mean,
hey, did you know Mr. Parks is coming to Huntsville, Alabama?
No, he's not.
The same day that you're going to be destroying everybody with some fish and chips across the pond over at All In. Right down the road from my house at the VBC will be WWE superstars Charlotte Flair, Cody Rhodes, and Chris Parks, among others.
No way.
Yeah, we might have a little well, I can't say what we might be doing because it might get them in trouble, but I think the time zone would allow everybody to have some fun. We'll figure it out. But either way.
Well, let me just ask you this. Do you think you will fire up a grill for Mr. Parks?
I don't know if I trust him around fire.
I don't trust he you know what? Don't count on him. Hey, I'll bring the steaks. Nope. Hey, I'll bring any. Nope.
Well, now, in fairness, he doesn't live here. He's a guest. I would provide the meat, but him near an open flame might be dangerous. I've seen video footage of what happens with him in fire.
He's dangerous. He's dangerous picking football games.
If we're on the back patio and I'm standing at the grill and he has a bag and he opens it like this, I'm hauling my fat ass out of there because there's thumbtacks in there. And I'm going to get a black hole slam and a lecture about the Bengals.
You're going to come away if he visits you with so many quotes. Just have like a note taker around or get Silva to just say, hey, did you get that? Have him take notes. Yeah, he said, what about Joe Burrow? Or
Abyssisms.
Oh, abyssisms. Yes. I mean, he's going to come up. I wonder what his college football team's going to be this year. The ranking, I bet he's Michigan's his team this year because his Buckeyes stink. Terrible. He'll jump on some bandwagon.
Hey, where's Tennessee ranked this year?
10th.
Okay.
5 out of the top 10 are in the SEC. Somebody asked me, Conrad, we're just kibitzing here and we'll go. It's been a long day. Somebody asked me in the gym today. There was a group going on and I'm over on the treadmill. Yep. And they said, hey, we got an argument going on over here. Who's the best college coach going into this year? And I said, well, pal, this is my Conrad, you're gonna like this answer. I said, don't you kind of have to be dethroned first?
Yeah.
And they go, no, don't tell me I said, look, I'm a Tennessee fan, but kind of look at the resume of Mr. Saban.
I mean,
he's got to be up there. He's got to be number one until somebody consistently or he retires.
You see, he bought a house this past week.
Where?
Jupiter Island. $17.5 million.
Bless his heart. He can afford that.
Yeah, I'm sure it was straight cash, homie. Because, when you're at that level, you don't need SaveWithConrad.com.
He's done well.
Just go ahead and strike a check, baby. You're good. Right? I'm just saying. Listen, we're having a lot of fun. I know that Jeff is disappointed. He no longer has a hooker in Tennessee. That doesn't mean what you think it does. What?
We're going to be good, man. You wait.
Compared to what?
All right. Do we going to get a little trash talk?
I'm just asking. You said we're going to be good. I asked compared to what?
You guys will slip back into the win column against the Volunteers this year.
Run the table. Alabama won't lose this year.
Bless your heart. Bless your heart. No. Tell me you hadn't been drinking some of Joe Park's Kool-Aid or what? You don't really believe that, do you?
I mean, here's the reality. You know me. we're playing with house money. If Alabama didn't win another game, I'd still be happy.
Oh, God. Now, so folks, that right there is Conrad setting himself up for a 4-loss.
Jeff, let's just listen. I did this not too long ago with Eric. Let's make a bet right now that at the end of the season, Alabama will have a better record than Tennessee, or I'll shave my head.
Wow.
I know you can't do that because you got to save those golden locks for Tony Khan.
I've got another video game to promote. Yeah, I can't do that.
I'll shave Karen's head instead.
Okay.
Just shave Karen's head. Hey, we'll come up with something, but roll Tide till the end and get all that Rocky Top out of here. We'll see you next week right here on My World.
Peace.